Okay, so we're going to go over the work that you did yesterday. So you guys watched the Mr. J video about multiplying by powers of 10. You've also seen me go over multiplying by powers of 10 with whole numbers. So there is a trick that Mr. J showed you, and I wrote in the notes in our slides, that instead of moving the numbers like how we moved them here, you can just move the decimal. And I'm going to review that with you and go over your answers. So let's see how you did. All right, so our first one is 9 4/100 times 10. Well, when we're timesing by 110, we can move our decimal one time over because we're moving our digits. Well, normally our digits would move one place over, like my 9 would move to my 10s. But instead of having to do all of this work that we practice with whole numbers, I think you guys are ready for that trick. So you can just move the decimal. Well, when you're multiplying, your number needs to get larger. So if we move the decimal this way to the left, our number would get smaller. So we need to move our decimal to the right to make it larger. And we're only multiplying by one group of 10. So we're just going to move our decimal one time. Okay, and I'm not going to leave, here, let me put number 1 here, so I know that's for my first one. I'm not going to leave that as my answer because it looks like it has 2 different decimals. So I'm going to rewrite it over here so that it's neater and it makes more sense. Okay, so 9 4/100 times 10 equals 90 4/10. That makes sense because if we just looked at the whole number and multiplied it by 10, we know that 10 times 9 is 90. So we have a little bit with our decimal, so we would just make sure that we had some decimal also, that doesn't disappear. And see why it's so important for you to know your times tables? Because it's a way for you to check your work. If you didn't know what 9 times 10 was, that you wouldn't be able to check to see if it makes sense. It's going to make it a little bit trickier. Okay, so the second one, we're doing 9 4/100 times 10 to the second power. Well, I know 10 to the second power is 10 times 10. So when I did times 10 up here and I moved it once, if I'm multiplying 10 2 times, how many times do you think I move my decimal? I move it twice. And that 2, that's the exponent, gives you the hint that that's what you're going to be doing. So I'm going to move it twice to the right because I want my number to get larger because I'm multiplying. Okay, so that would equal 904. And remember, every whole number has an invisible decimal right there. So that decimal's there. You just don't need to write it when you don't have anything on the decimal side. So this would equal 904. Okay, then number 3, we have 9 4/100 again times 10 to the third power. Well, I know 10 to the third power equals 10 times 10 times 10. So I'm going to move my decimal how many times? 3 times. And I'm going to move it to the right because I want my number to get larger, not smaller, because I am multiplying. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, well, I have a space here. Nothing is here where this jump is, so I need to make sure I put in my 0 as a placeholder. So this number is 9,040. Okay, so as I'm multiplying by more 10s, my number keeps on getting larger. All right, number 4. So 9 4/100 times 10 to the fourth power. 10 to the fourth power equals 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. So how many times am I going to move my decimal? 4 times. So I'm going to rewrite my decimal, my original one. Okay, and it's really important that you make your jumps go in between your digits and that they're big enough to put your zeros in. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Because if you don't make them big enough, you won't have room or it won't look like you need to put a 0 in there. So this equals 90,400. All right, my last one, number 5. I have 9 400ths times 10 to the 5th power. Well, 10 to the 5th power equals 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. So how many times am I going to move my decimal? 5 times. And I'm going to move it to the right because my number is getting larger. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And put in your placeholders, your zeros. Oh. All right, so now my number is 904,000. Okay. All right, so make sure when you're multiplying, so I'm going to do a multiplication symbol. I move my decimal to the right. Move decimal to the right. Okay. Now, today you guys are going to be working on division. So when you multiply, you move your decimal to the right. So when you're dividing and you need the number to get smaller, which way do you think you move your decimal? To the left, right. Okay, go ahead and watch the next Mr. J video and do your work for today.